If Mr. Chesborough was the architect of the fake elector scheme, if Mr. Chesborough was the architect of some plan to bring down democracy, which is what I've heard over and over for the last couple of months, both in court and out of court, would the district attorney of Fulton County have offered him probation and first offender status? I think the answer is no, and I think if you asked her, the answer would be no. And so while Mr. Chesborough did take responsibility for conspiracy to commit filing of false documents, I want to make something clear. He did not implicate anyone else. He implicated himself in that particular charge. And while he is required to go testify truthfully if he's called by the state, and Mr. Chesborough is a man of his word, and he will go testify truthfully if called by the state's going to have to decide at some point whether they think Mr. Chesborough's testimony will help them. And if they believe it will help them, well, they'll call him and he'll come testify. But also at the same time, Katie, I will say, if he's called by a defendant, he will come testify and testify truthfully.
Scott, now, listen, you and I have been doing this for a long time, right? Although I technically don't do it anymore. I do this. But your client gave a recorded proffer to the state of Georgia. And what did he say?
I'm not at liberty to say exactly what he said, but here's what I'm at liberty to say. Someone asked me earlier, if you were Donald Trump, would you be worried? And I could personally, honestly answer no. And it's not that Mr. Chesborough is trying to protect Donald Trump or anyone else. He's not. He's ready to move on with his life. But I was there in the proffer. Again, I'm not going to say what was said because it is a confidential proffer and that will probably get me in trouble. But I can say that I personally do not believe the state will call him to testify on their behalf. If they do, and if I'm wrong, Mr. Chesborough will be there. He'll testify truthfully. If I were the state,
Scott,
I would not call.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a clip that is pretty hilarious because it is an example of the mainstream liberal media getting their bubble burst in regards to their narrative against Trump. Now, the clip that we got to talk about is in relation to the RICO charges against Trump in Georgia. You guys know the RICO charges, the election interference case that has been levied against Trump by Miss Fannie Pack Willis, the woke, unhinged DA out of Fulton County, who is prosecuting political opponents to gain clout and to possibly run for higher office. Clearly, she's doing this for her own political career. And that is why she's bringing this case against Trump and his allies. Now, there's been some developments in that case, as you have two co-defendants, lawyers, Sidney Powell, you guys all remember her, the Kraken lady, and Kenneth Chesborough, the guy who has been accused of being the architect for the so-called fake elector scheme, which really is called the alternative elective scheme or the contingent elector scheme or theory. They have now took a plea deal before this thing could go to trial, okay? And the plea deal for Sidney Powell was that she pleaded guilty to 6 misdemeanor counts, while Chesborough pleaded to a felony count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. Now, understand, these individuals did not plead guilty when it came to the RICO charges. The RICO charges actually got dropped, okay? However, the expectation for the mainstream liberal media is that these individuals are going to testify against Trump during the RICO prosecution. And the lawyer for Mr. Kenneth Chesborough is going to burst a bubble in the mainstream liberal media narrative because they keep running with this narrative that, hey, these guilty pleas means that Trump, he's done, right? The nail is in the coffin, right? If you look at MSNBC's headline here, the nail is in the coffin, right? These individuals have implicated Trump and that Trump is done because of these plea deals. These individuals are going to testify against Trump. And the lawyer for Mr. Chesborough is actually, again, pushing back against his narrative for the mainstream liberal media. And it's pretty hilarious to watch him do it on CNN with Abby Phillips, who's clearly trying to push this narrative that somehow, some way, this means that Trump is guilty. Take a look.
Look, today, your client has now implicated Trump in this criminal conspiracy. If he is called upon to testify in this Georgia case, is he willing to implicate Trump on a witness stand, which seems to be required in this plea deal that he just struck?
So, Abby, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Second of all, I am going to respectfully disagree with you on one thing. I don't think he implicated anyone but himself. And I just want to point out two important facts that I think will get exactly to your question. Not only did he avoid jail time, but this is the most important. He did not plead guilty to the RICO charge. Mr. Chesborough pled guilty, and I printed it out to make sure I had the exact words: conspiracy to commit filing of false documents. The RICO charge was dismissed. And listen, Mr. Chesborough accepted responsibility for count 15 of the indictment, and he agreed that if he were called by the state, he would come testify truthfully. And he is a man of his word, and he will do that. Whether his testimony is going to be helpful to the state, that's going to be for the state to decide.
This whole witch hunt that they're doing with Donald Trump, I think, is a whole bunch of BS, because everything that they're doing legally to try to get him, there's no precedent set. And if you know anything about law, which you don't have to know that much, there has to be some type of precedent set. Otherwise, things are just being made up. So we know it's a witch hunt to keep him off the ballot with all these indictments, and then some states are talking about taking him off of the ballot. We need to be very worried. We need to be very worried, because we need precedents to get any of this stuff done.
I personally do not see his testimony being helpful for the state, but if the state wants to call him, he absolutely can come and tell the truth. And if they think that's helpful for them, and they think they could convince a jury that his testimony is helpful for them, then so be it.
So who in Mr. Chesborough's view was the architect of this fake electors plot?
Mr. Chesborough doesn't think there was a fake electors plot. And Abby, please, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but the fake electors plot was part of the RICO conspiracy. And Fani Willis dismissed the RICO charge. And the charge that he pled to has nothing to do with being the architect of the fake elector plot. And I will say, and I will ask anyone listening to ask themselves this question: if Mr. Chesborough was the architect of the fake elector plot, then would the district attorney of Fulton County offer him 5 years probation and first offender? I don't think she would. And that really just proves that while he did accept responsibility for count 15, that he was never the architect of the fake elector plot. And I think if you asked him who was, I think he would say there wasn't a fake elector plot, and there certainly wasn't an architect, and it certainly wasn't him.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay, now again, the mainstream liberal media is trying to implicate Trump and Kenneth Chesborough's plea deal, which is simply not the case. Okay, he's not implicating Trump, he's only implicating himself. And then they're also trying to assume that because they gave Kenneth Chesborough and Sidney Powell plea deals, that they're required to testify against Trump, and that, again, their testimony is going to be used to hurt Trump, aka they're going to snitch on Trump, they're going to rat Trump out. This is what the mainstream liberal media narrative is, which also is what the attorney is pushing back on. And he's saying, well, look, the reason why Fannie Pack Willis gave the plea deal is
Notice how he calls her Fanny Pack. But the reason they're bringing all these so-called co-conspirators, because they're looking for someone to turn on Trump, because they know they just can't get Trump by himself. So they trying all type of shady tactics, man. What are they doing? And now, by all means, if Trump did something that was illegal, I don't care who you are, you need to pay the consequences. Everybody, if they did something illegal. But making up things to fit some certain type of narrative without precedence, I think that's very, very dangerous. That is very dangerous. That's the reason why we have rules and we have laws. You have to go by those rules and laws. Don't make something up to get someone just because you don't like them. That's evil. You know, you could be messing up this man's life. And not only that, Trump would be a good president, a great president. and he would be helping out the people, and they don't want the people to be helped out. They want the people to be reliant on them. Give me this. I need something from you. So that way they can always feel like they have some type of control, which if that's the case, then they would.
Because she wasn't ready, right? Her case is weak, it's falling apart, and this is why she's doing this, okay? That's why this is happening. They don't have anything. Now, remember, these people, right, these co-defendants, they separated themselves from everybody else. They wanted speedy trials, and they got what they wanted in regards to speedy trials, and they basically offered this guy a golden parachute, basically. Okay, they basically kind of let him off. I don't think he's going to jail. And if you look at the facts of the case, okay, this is what mainstream liberal media is not telling you. If you actually watch the plea deal kind of ceremony in court where they offer him the plea deal with Sidney Powell, in her case, Trump is not mentioned at all, right? For whatever reason, her lawyer was able to not even have Trump mentioned at all. Now, when it comes,
so that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see the entire video, just search Black Conservative Perspective on YouTube. This whole thing is a joke. That's why they done brought up 90 plus counts, because they know they can get, if they can only get one thing to stick in all of these indictments, all 4 of them so far, if they can just get one thing to stick, they don't even care if they win. He's guilty because he's getting accused, all right, in the eye of the public, in the eye of people who aren't really thinking about what they're doing.